Out with Rico and Karla is about to go live online. Catch select moments of All Out hit music, All Out celebrity interviews, All Out showbiz and sports news, All Out fun. Mid-mornings on The Monster. Streaming video on the Monster Facebook page at RX931, the Monster YouTube channel at RX931, or twitch.tv/Monster RX931. Your All Out hosts, Rico Robles and Karla Aguas. Stand by and enjoy the program.
We are live.
Yes, we are. Look at us.
Yeah, look at it. We're ready. We are ready. You know, when it comes to this is a nice way because it's been a while since we've heard from a Filipino fighter to actually, you know, compete in the active roster of the UFC, especially with the Fight Island. We did have Red De La Cruz and Camila on the show. Now, this time we're going to have an actual fighter to join us. Are you ready, Karla?
I don't know. Will he intimidate me? You know how they have that stare down and I'm just like, no, please, no.
I mean, this is coming from a girl who had a stare down with BJ Penn. I mean, come on.
And I was holding my breath and trying not to look directly into his eyes. I was just like, get through this picture.
Ladies and gentlemen, joining us, he is here in Manila now, but he trains out of Baguio City. Give it up for the one and only Mark Mugen Striegl.
Yo, what's up, guys? Hey, thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for joining us. First of all, you look so cool. He looks like he could totally be part of like the Street Fighter G.I. Joe cast. Look, with a black tank top. I'm living for it. Hi, Mark.
Hey, doing good. Thank you.
You know, thank you for taking time to join us. How you been? How's everything going?
I'm doing good, bro. Thanks, man. I'm in Manila training right now. My family's in Baguio. I finished training with Coach Castro yesterday, so I'm pretty wrecked and sore today. But yeah, man, feeling good, man. Just gearing up for my next fight and nursing a few injuries. But yeah, business as usual.
It's as simple as that, Karla. Business as usual.
Yeah, he's just like, you know, I'm working out, building my muscle, getting ready to kill somebody in the octagon. But it's fine. It's cool. How you guys doing? Mark, I mean, you know, a lot of people, especially when they're kids, you know, when you're a kid, you're like, I want to be a doctor, or I want to be a superhero, I want to be a fireman. Did you always want to be like a fighter? Did you always want to beat up your classmates? I mean, what is the story? What made you decide to get into this professional fighting?
Yeah, no, that's a good question because I think a lot of people wonder how one goes into professional fighting, whether it's boxing or mixed martial arts. For me, I definitely think that the influences growing up, like watching Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, watching, like playing certain video games, Street Fighter, watching Jean-Claude Van Damme movies. I think that all of these things had an influence on me, and I really thought that martial arts were really cool. You know, I put martial arts up here. And also I have an older brother named Frank, and he joined the wrestling team, and he's 4 years older than me. So, you know, being the younger brother, it's just the two of us. So being the younger brother, you kind of copy whatever your older brother does, you know, because you think it's cool, especially when you're growing up. So with wrestling, I copied him. I joined the freestyle wrestling team, and I was pretty successful in wrestling. And then from there, that just led into other martial arts and, the influences from TV and movies and stuff. And then I think, there was one day where it just kind of clicked in my head, and I didn't know if it was MMA and fighting that I wanted to do, but I knew that I wanted to be an athlete of some sports, maybe of some sort, maybe in wrestling or in mixed martial arts, you know.
And getting into wrestling, I could tell that you're probably the wrestling buddy of your brother. He probably threw you around. You know what I mean? When you guys would always.
Actually, it's funny to be honest. He was like a pretty tame, nice, gentle older brother. I'm pretty lucky, man. Like he was really kind. It was actually. I was the instigator, to be honest. I was 4 years younger. I am 4 years younger, and growing up, I was always the instigator. And it's funny, like even though he could beat me up with one hand, you know, when we were in high school, because 4 years is a big difference, you know. That's me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's me in 8th grade and him as a senior. So he's 17, 18 years old, and I'm you know, I'm still a middle school kid. So if he wanted to, of course, he could just pin me down and wreck me. But you know, he wasn't like that. He was nice. So I definitely took advantage of that. And yeah, I'm lucky. He was a good older brother.
You know, Karla, an interesting fact here that I'm about to share with you that's going to surprise you, that Mark's dad is a teacher in Japan, and his student is actually JC Teves.
Really? Oh my
Yeah.
God.
That's crazy, man. That's a small world. That's nuts.
Yeah, you know.
Crazy small. You know what? They say Manila is too small. The world is too small. But, you know, okay.
For real.
So you grow up watching Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. You know, you follow in your older brother's footsteps. You get into wrestling. You get into fighting. How did you decide to get started? Because I think it wouldn't be that easy, right? I mean, like, did you have to look for like a gym that was willing to take you on, a coach?
Yeah.
What's that process like? Because, you know, it's very different from, let's say, basketball, where I was going to say audition. Wow, I'm so sporty. Where they try out, right?
You want to audition?
Or they get drafted, or same with volleyball or football. What's the process like for fighters? Like, did you go to different gyms? Or did you like start a street fight and then like the coach walked by
viral,
and he was
right?
like,
Yeah.
train
Well, some
you,"
guys like
you know?
some guys like Masvidal, right? I mean, no, I mean when I got involved in MMA, the landscape was very different than it is now. I'm 32 years old, and I was in high school when I had my first MMA training session. I was in high school. Oh yeah, one thing that I left out was that at the time in Tokyo, Japan, when I was born and raised in Tokyo, Japan, Pride Fighting Championships was the biggest MMA promotion in the world at the time. So, yeah, Pride Fighting Championships is basically what the UFC at the time is what the UFC is today. So Pride Fighting Championships was huge. It was a massive spectacle. I mean, you're talking 60,000 screaming fans at Saitama Super Arena. Wow. So when I was growing up in Japan, I idolized these fighters. I'd see them on TV. I'd sometimes even bump into them in Roppongi, and you know, really, they had a big influence on me, as well as the movies and wrestling. And then I think it was my senior year of high school, during one of the school breaks, one of the vacations, me and my friend Shumpe, we found a local MMA gym near me. I forget the station's name, but it was like 20 minutes by train from both of us. So we just walked into the gym. There was a ton of amateur fighters, and there was one pro fighter who was leading the class, Yuji Hoshino, who ended up becoming my mentor. And yeah, I basically fell in love with it on the spot. I did really well in the amateur class. And then here's the funny thing. So I did really well in the amateur class, and I spent, you know, a few one-on-one sessions with the coach, because he noticed that I was doing well with the Amis, and that I had a wrestling background, and that I was pretty aggressive and athletic. So he called me over to the side. I went one-on-one with him for a little while. And then soon after that, he was like, "Hey, Mark, I want to bring you to another gym, a little outside the city, in like 1 week's time." So I was like, "Okay, sure, let's go. Let's check out this other gym." So 1 week later, after my first training session in mixed martial arts, he brings me to this other gym outside the city. I get on his motorbike. We go outside of Tokyo. It's like an hour away, 1 hour trip. And we're outside the city. I walk up the stairs of this building. He opens the door. And right when I look inside, I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with some of these fighters' names, but right when the doors open, I see, you know, Yushin Okami, Kal Uno, Yoshihiro Akiyama. Like, and this was like 10 years ago, when these guys were at the top of the food chain in fighting in Japan, and when
superstars. These guys are superstars. Oh my goodness.
Superstars of Japanese MMA. You know, I mean, this was when Yushin Okami was about to fight Anderson Silva for the second time. This was crazy, you know, and I was this you know, high school kid that just walked into this shark tank, with a bunch of great white sharks. And I was like, I remember the first thought that entered my head right when I walked in, and they're all looking at me. They're all just kind of staring at me. They're like, oh, who's this kid that UG brought in? And I was like, oh crap, I'm gonna get my ass kicked today. That was the first thing that I thought of, But of course I embraced it, and I was like, okay, this is gonna be fun. I'm gonna learn a lot from these guys. Like, who better to learn from? And this is baptism by fire, so to speak.
I mean, it is probably your wrestling. They brought you in, your wrestling skills. That's what they all needed, right? I mean, most of them are probably just doing jiu-jitsu now to add that into the mix. But going to your first pro fight, how was that like? How was that feeling? That you're gonna go to your first pro fight, and were you nervous? Can you walk us through your first pro fight, and what league was it?
Okay, so it was a few years later that I had my first pro fight. I did a good amount of training in Japan, and then I moved over to the States for university. I went to university in San Diego at Point Loma Nazarene, and when I was training in the States, I got the offer soon later to make my professional debut in Total Combat, which is the same Total Combat at Balboa Park. It's the same promotion that Dominic Cruz started in. It's a solid promotion in San Diego. So I got the offer to fight Andy Jewett, I remember. He was a 3-2 pro, so 3 wins, 2 losses. He's already had 5 professional fights, and I was making my professional debut. So he's got more experience than me, but we wanted to jump on the opportunity, and yeah, we trained really hard for it. I remember training really hard, did a proper fight camp in San Diego at Victory MMA, which was where I was training at the time. And I had just the feelings. I remember walking out to the cage with my song.
What was your song?
I was just going to say, I can't even remember what song I chose, to be honest. I don't even remember what song I chose. But anyway, I walked out to the cage.
The Tiger. You think I am the Tiger.
Like that, I don't know. I remember walking out to the cage, and I remember standing in the cage, and then I remember my opponent coming out with he was half Mexican, half American. So he came out with like some Mexican kind of festive music, and he had
mariachi.
Yes, and he had that hat on. I think what's that hat called?
Sombrero.
Sombrero, yes. So he had the sombrero on, and he was kind of making it like a show, like kind of like a festive, like taking light of the situation and kind of like dancing and stuff. And I remember looking at him and being like, it's funny. I remember thinking like, this ain't a game, like you're coming out here laughing and stuff, like, and I remember that like kind of like pissed me off for a second. And then I remember looking up to the audience though. And this was my moment. This was the funny moment that was kind of like disbelief. I remember looking up to the audience and seeing like all these people and thinking like, wow, all these people are here paying to watch us beat each other up. and just being kind of disbelief, like, wow, this is crazy. Like, it's kill or be killed. We're both about to get locked in this cage. He's a few feet from the cage, and all these people on the right are screaming and they want to see blood. Like, wow, this is straight up like Coliseum days, like, okay, here we go. And then at that moment, I just took a deep breath and I was like, okay, embrace it. Let's go. We trained for this. Kill or be killed. Whatever happens, happens. But yeah, I'm confident. Let's go. It was like that. But yeah, of course there was fear and anxiety. I mean, any fighter that tells you that they're not scared is full of it. I mean, everyone feels nerves and everyone feels anxiety, especially in fight sport. It's just managing it and learning to deal with it. That's all.
And of course, how was the result? Did you get the win? Did you knock him out? How did you win?
I did get the win. I choked him unconscious actually with a rear naked choke. And at the beginning of the second round, because he didn't tap out, so I put him to sleep, and I got the win. So I won my professional debut.
So
Karla, now we know never to borrow
him.
money. Yeah, we now know never to borrow money from Mark. Never to borrow anything and lose it or break it, and basically just not to piss the guy off. I mean, Mark, I like what you said. You touched on the fact that you looked to the crowd and you were like, oh my God, they're literally paying to see people fight. And yet here you are making a profession out of it, like you're literally a pro fighter. Does it ever get kind of crazy in your head? Like you think to yourself, I am literally training to pound on somebody in front of like thousands of people cheering. Do you ever like sit back and think, how is this my job? Like, dang, what?
No,
I
no,
mean,
no.
do you ever think that? Because it's
No,
not
absolutely.
usual.
No, you're absolutely right. Like looking back, and I'm like, wow, of all the roads that I could have taken in life, and this is the road that I chose. And I'm sure it's very stressful for my parents and my family.
I was gonna say,
Um,
your mom and dad must be like, wow,
no,
exactly the
like
sport we want.
exactly. Like my brother went into finance, and then he now runs a ramen tour business in Japan in Tokyo. He's still over there. So from finance to ramen tours, which is pretty interesting, And then, even wilder than ramen tours is a professional fighter for a son. So I'm sure they're having a roller coaster ride right now for sure.
And
Aw.
the ultimate dream for fighters like you is the UFC, right? But it didn't start out from there. Wherein you found yourself in the Philippines actually doing some fights for the URCC. So how did you find yourself here in the Philippines? And how were you discovered here? And how were your fights here?
Yeah, so I think it was after my pro debut in San Diego. I moved back to Asia. I had a fight in Taipei, Taiwan, in a nightclub against I know, in a nightclub. It's funny. Well, that's like the fight. That's the
Fight Club. That's the
it's
Fight
the Fight
Club.
Club,
Yeah.
and that's the for a lot of these smaller shows, you take fights, you take pro fights where you can get them. And for the first few years of my fight career, my professional fight career, I was just hopping around Asia, taking fights and getting as much experience as I can, and hoping that I would amass a winning record, like get a record of, 4 or 5-0, and then I would be scooped up by a bigger promotion and start making some real money. So, I mean, now it's a little different, but at the time, I really wasn't making much money, like I think for my first few fights, I was just breaking even, or if like I was breaking even because I would have to cover my own flight for some of them, but I was really just hoping that, I was just grinding and hoping that I would win the fights, and then I would get scooped up by a larger promotion if I did well and I had like a good record. So thankfully it paid off. And one of the fights early in my career was I got an offer to fight in URCC Baguio. I think it was my third professional fight. So I just won that fight in the nightclub in Taipei against one of Korea's top fighters, Baeyoung Kwon. Very, very tough fighter. I took the fight on like 2 weeks notice, and I didn't know that he was a killer at the time until after the fight when I beat him, and I was like, oh wow, dodged a bullet there. And then the third fight, my third professional fight, I got offered to fight Crisanto Pipitunge from Team Lakay in the I think it was the main event. Yeah, the main event of URCC Baguio. So that was my first. I grew up going to the Philippines during vacations with my family. I mean, we lived in Tokyo, but we'd fly over for vacations. But this was my first time going up to Baguio City. I had never been to Baguio. I never even heard of Baguio growing up. A place in the mountains, summer capital, cool air. Who would have thought, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I got the offer to fight in URCC Baguio. I flew out 1 week in advance, because I knew that I'd have to get acclimated and I'd have to adjust to the high altitude, so it wouldn't blow up. I wouldn't have any cardio problems, and I wouldn't have breathing problems because the oxygen is thinner up there.
Elevated,
right?
yeah.
It's elevated, exactly. So I went there about a week early, And yeah, thankfully I won the fight. I submitted Crisanto in the first round with a rear naked choke. And yeah, that was my first fight in the Philippines. And then right after that, I fell in love with Baguio City. I went back there for a training camp. I went back to Japan right after that, after I won the fight. And then I went back to Baguio in the Philippines a few months later for a training camp. And I couldn't get myself to leave. And then soon later, I met my girlfriend at the time, and then she became my wife. Then here we are, and I got 2 kids and a bunch of other fights later.
Life just happened, right? That's what it's all about.
No, you're absolutely right. Like I didn't think at the time that a URCC fight offer in Baguio, in a place I'd never been to before in the mountains, would end up becoming my home, and that I'd meet my wife there, and my parents would eventually move there from Tokyo and retire there. Yeah, life is crazy.
And Mark, just a question: when you get married, when you have kids, does the perspective change now as a fighter?
Yeah.
I mean, now you have family.
Yeah.
How does it go? What's the difference between you being a single dude and now having a family and still continuing to fight?
Yeah.
No, absolutely. Now, definitely your perspective changes. I mean, it's about them now. You realize that once you have kids, that now it's not just about you and your selfish needs or whatever. Even if they're not selfish, your needs. It's about your kids and providing the best future for them, and giving them all the opportunities that you had or may not have had growing up. So I definitely want to do that for my 2 kids, and yeah, now it's really fighting for them. So.
And
That's insane, because it's so different now, right? With a wife and with kids. I'm sure it makes you really think about the fights like you pick to make sure it's going to be fights that you are going to, really be prepared for, right? I would like to think, because my gosh, you have 2 babies.
Yeah. Yeah, it's wild, man. And yeah, I mean, it's I wanna be healthy too. I do think about that too. I don't want to be a punch drunk fighter when they're older, and I can't really enjoy them growing up. That is something that fighters do have to think about, because it's sad, but it does happen in the sport, So I know that I'm in a crazy sport that is very taxing on the body, and there are a lot of injuries. But yeah, I'm trying to take care of my body the best I can, and so I can be there for them when they grow up.
Now, Mark, one of the goals that everybody has for a fighter is the UFC. Now you find yourself in the UFC. Now you're about to make your debut. This made the news. Then all of a sudden you find out that you have COVID-19, that you had to take, there was a setback. First and foremost, how was it like when you got the letter from the UFC, or who got you? Did you try out? Did you audition, as Karla would say, for the UFC?
Yeah. So this was last year, like pretty much 2 months into the pandemic, and I was in Baguio with my family, and my coach George Castro, we had signed with Ruby Sports, which is a management company in the States. Ruby Sports and Entertainment. And my coach, George Castro here, he told me that he just heard from them that if I can get over to Vegas in the middle of this pandemic, there was a very high chance that I could fight in the UFC. So I think part of it was, it's the middle of a pandemic, and they're not going to take a chance and just fly me over from the Philippines when they don't know the current state of affairs with the pandemic and laws and rules for flying and restrictions, right? So they told me, hey, just if you can go to Vegas, if you can make it to Vegas, my management company said that if I can make it to Vegas, there's a very high chance that I could get a UFC fight. So that's exactly what I did. I went down to Manila from Baguio, and I had a lot of trouble getting over to Vegas. Actually, I missed my first. Such bad luck. It's funny. Okay, let me see if I can recall this properly. I I missed my first flight when I booked a Korean Airlines flight, and when I got to the airport, I went to the counter to check in, and they said, "Where is your negative COVID test?" They said, "Where's your negative COVID
You
test?"
need
right?
that. That's right.
I need that, exactly, right? But at the time, it wasn't a requirement. So what I just my luck, like really bad luck, actually. 5 days before that flight, they had made this new rule that you needed a negative COVID test, but not just any negative COVID test, a negative COVID test from like one of 3 facilities in Manila, like St. Luke's, Medical City. There were a few of them, okay? And I didn't have this test, and they didn't notify me by email. I got no notification whatsoever. And surprise, surprise, this is a new rule that was just made 5 days before your flight, and you need a test from one of these 3 facilities, right? So anyway, I missed that flight. I lost money on the flight. I couldn't I couldn't get the money back because I booked it through one of the one of the cheaper travel agencies. And then I was in a rush all of a sudden to get a test, right? So I called those 3 places. I had to line up in ER. I would go in the middle of the night to try to get in and get a test, but they're all, I mean, this is right at the start of the pandemic, right? So things were crazy. Like ER lines were like 6 hours, no joke. Wow. Just crowds of people. And I remember thinking as I'm standing there, like, I just need a negative test so I can get to the UFC, to Vegas to fight in the UFC. And I'm probably gonna get COVID standing in this 6-hour waiting line in ER with all of these people, like this is a giant mass of people, So it was super nerve-wracking, and I finally got my test in the middle at like 4 a.m. in the middle of one night. After lining up in ER, I finally got tested, and then I was able to rebook my flight and fly out 1 week later. Now, when I got to Vegas, I tied up with a gym there called Syndicate MMA. It's a completely new gym, never been there before, so that was definitely a fun learning experience. Going with a new coach, going with completely new training partners, and but they're all good guys, good coach, good gym, Syndicate MMA. So it wasn't that hard, but definitely with jet lag and meeting a new, it was just baptism by fire. And then suddenly, about 1 week after training, they said, "Hey, short notice UFC debut against Timur Valiev, who's a tough Russian guy." And I was like, "Okay, well, that's what I'm here to do. Let's take it, right?" So just got over jet lag, and then boom, 1 week later, we're about to fight this Russian guy in Vegas at the UFC Apex Center in Vegas. So we checked into the fighter hotel on fight week. I was getting my weight down. I already did a COVID test a few days before that, and I was already negative. And now it's, what is it? It's 2 days from the weigh-ins, okay? It's 2 days from the UFC weigh-ins, and I'm in my hotel room, and they have everyone quarantined into their own rooms because of the pandemic. You have, like, we're basically not making contact with any of the fighters. And I'm inside my room, and I'm starting to feel like a little out of it. I'm starting to feel achy, my body, kind of like the flu. And I'm getting a little concerned. And I'm like, well, I don't think it's COVID because I just had a test a few days ago and I tested negative. But I start to get worried because I still have 10 pounds to lose. And it's 2 days until the weigh-ins. And I still have 10 pounds to lose in water weight. So I got to sit in the sauna to lose 10 more pounds. And at this point, I'm feeling pretty crappy, I'm feeling pretty bad. So I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, it's maybe just because I'm losing water weight and it's weight cut, and that's why I feel achy. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, maybe it is COVID or something, because there are a lot of cases here in Vegas at the time. And then anyway, we do one more test, and then sure enough, I test positive for COVID. The fight gets canceled, and it clicks in my brain. Of course, I'm like, oh, that's why I felt crappy the last few days. It wasn't just regular weight cutting problems. I actually have COVID. And then, I went back to where I was staying, back to the house, and I just did a home quarantine for 2 weeks and recovered. And then thankfully the UFC rebooked me for another fight on UFC Fight Island in Abu Dhabi, which was, I think, 1.5 months after that.
And fighting that guy, I mean, your opponent was Nurmagomedov, right? The brother of Khabib.
I actually don't think that they're related. I think it's just the same last name, or maybe they're distant cousins or something. But they're not brothers. Yeah.
Because, you know, when you fight a Russian guy in the UFC, it's pretty scary. You know what I mean? Were you scared in the beginning when you got in there? And also, of course, the fight.
It's the same as any fight, you know. And him being a Nurmagomedov, you know, to be honest, it just made me more motivated. I was like, you know, if I could take out this guy, you know, like that's going to be great for my stock and for my career. So it just motivated me more than anything, to be honest.
And, you know, and then the fight, of course, didn't turn out the way we all wanted it. We were excited for the debut. You know, you came from a loss and you suffered an injury from there. I mean, what was that like? And what part of what was injured? Karla, he had surgery done in his face after that fight.
So of course, the fight didn't go the way I wanted. And I forget who said it recently, but there was an expression. There was someone said that you fight long enough, and if you spend long enough, if you spend enough time in the fight game, shit happens. And you know, that's basically what happened. And I got caught with a punch. I mean, hats off to Saeed, you know. I got caught with a punch that I didn't see coming, hit me right in the sweet spot, you know, right on the temple. And after his lead check hook, I really don't remember anything after that first exchange. Everything went black. And then when I woke up, the match was over, you know? So it was, you know, it was crappy. And that's definitely not how I envisioned my my UFC debut. But, and then, so what happened was after that, in one of those exchanges, one of his punches actually fractured and broke my orbital bone in my left eye. So this side.
Wow.
Yeah, like deep inside. So it was right after the fight. I was backstage with my team, and I was just like, what the hell happened? You know, like confused, like because after a knockout, you don't really remember, you can't really recall. That's what happened. So I was talking with my team in the back, and I was like, what the hell happened? Just trying to piece it together. And then I noticed that my vision was pretty blurry, especially from my left side, and that I was seeing double. And then I was talking to the UFC doctor, and the UFC doctor on the spot was saying, you know, do you want to go to a hospital nearby? But the problem was that the hospital was outside of the fighter hotel bubble. So the fighter hotel bubble, it would have been a big pain in the ass to leave the hotel and to get outside of the bubble. And then we would have had to go to a separate quarantine, like a lot of extra COVID tests, and we would have had to move our room and leave from the fighter floor because we would have left the bubble basically and then rechecked into the hotel after. So all of our stuff from our room had to be moved to a separate wing of the hotel. So anyway, a bunch of hassle if I wanted to go to this hospital to get my eye checked, which was outside of the fighter bubble. Okay. So I was talking to the doctor, and the doctor was saying, you know, do you want to go to this hospital? And then I was thinking like, nah, you know, it's probably not that serious. I'm probably just a little concussed right now, and things are just a little loopy. It'll probably go away. And then I look at her again from my left side, and I see her, and I'm like, okay, but I see 3 of you right now.
Oh my God.
And then at that moment, she was like, okay, Mark, like, no, you're going to the hospital. Like, I know you don't want to, but if you see 3 of me right now, it's not double, it's 3. She's like, if you see 3 of me right now, sorry, sign this paper, you're going to the hospital, and you're going to check outside of the bubble. So anyway, I went to the hospital with one of my corners, and when we got there, yeah, they did an MRI, they did a bunch of scans and checks, and it turned out that I had this pretty deep orbital fracture on my left side, where
God.
yeah, like the orbital bone on the inside. If this is the eyeball, the orbital bone on the inside, it collapsed and broke. And they think that it's actually from one of my previous fights, because there was some scarring and stuff there before. And I think it was from one of my old legend fights where I got kicked in the head in the past. And I did have a hairline fracture there. I remember that, which was supposed to heal on its own. So the area was probably already a little damaged from previous fights. And anyway, they told me on the spot, they're like, you're going to need surgery 100%. Do you want to have it here in Abu Dhabi at this hotel? Or do you want to have it in Vegas? Or do you want to have it in the Philippines? So this is like, I fought at midnight, because that was the schedule with the UFC pay-per-view and with ESPN and stuff. So I fought at midnight, and now we're in the hospital around 2 a.m. And yeah, it was basically a pretty long night. But to make a long story short, man, UFC was great. They figured it out with the doctors in the hospital that the best thing for me would be to take certain medication and antibiotics so that I could fly back to the Philippines, and that I wouldn't have any complications on the flight with air pressure in my eye and whatnot. And they tied me up with a really good doctor in Baguio that they knew, actually, small world, that they knew. One of the UFC doctors knew this Baguio and this Baguio doctor. And then the guy did surgery on my eye about 10 days later after the fight. And he installed a titanium plate inside my eye.
You have a titanium plate.
I have a titanium plate. Yay! So I'll show a picture on my phone, which is pretty
You ready, Karla?
pretty graphic.
Like a cyborg.
Oh my goodness! For those that are tuning in, Mark Striegl is joining us. He's just sharing with us, the dream of every fighter to get into the UFC and actually start fighting in the big leagues. So we're going to get to some fun questions and also his future plans for 2021. Go ahead. You ready with your picture? Oh,
Rico, zoom. What are you doing? Zoom, Rico.
Seconds. Yeah.
Oh, no.
So, yeah, so that whole plate is not inside my eye, not the whole plate, but they shaped it to fit the concave of my orbital area. And yeah, basically that's still there right now. And my first question was, am I going to have trouble going through airport security every time I fly now?
Yeah, the metal detectors.
Yeah. Right. And they said it's okay. They said it's okay, that it's a special kind of plate that doesn't go
sound off. Doesn't sound off.
Yeah.
Right?
Mark, we wish we could have you for longer, but I mean, with all that's happening, things are kind of getting looser now, restrictions are being lifted and whatnot. What plans or goals do you have for yourself and your fights moving forward, like with this entire pandemic? Can you share with us?
Yeah, no, of course. I my plan, of course, is to get my first win in the UFC. I was actually supposed to fight on the Usman Masvidal 2 card, which was just a few days ago. I was scheduled to fight on that card, but I tore some ligaments in my ankle while I was training. So unfortunately, I had to pull out. Just bad luck, just a training accident. But my healing is going well, and I'm recovering fine. So I'm just looking to fight again in a few months to get my my first UFC win, and then on top of that, I want to continue to train and compete in Sambo, because I am a national team member for the Philippine Sambo team. So looking to compete in both sports, dual sport athlete for MMA, competing in the UFC, and any Sambo competitions.
And
Wow.
For all you people who don't know, Mark has a very interesting TikTok account. If you like to work out, you could follow him. I'm not kidding. I do my ab training and my muscle, conditioning through his TikTok account. So tell us about that. Tell us about that before we head on out.
Yeah, no, TikTok's a crazy platform, man. I only started it a few months back, and I just upload a ton of workout content and a lot of my strength and conditioning sessions that I do on my own or with my coach George Castro. So if you're looking, for ab exercises, if you're looking for core workouts or just workout tips and stuff that you could do on your own. At home with minimal equipment, please give my account a follow. You could check it out. It's Mark Mugen 23. Yeah.
All right, let's check it out,
I'm
Karla.
excited.
Get
I
some
know.
ab workout in there, right? You know what I mean? But before we let you go, Mark, you have any message for all your Filipino fans and also aspiring Filipino fighters that want to reach the goal that you have reached and just keep on going?
Yeah, aspiring fighters, keep training hard, man. I know the pandemic is tough, but there'll always be setbacks in life. I certainly had a lot of setbacks last year, and with this last injury in my ankle, and my fight was canceled. But you just got to keep moving forward and make a way. So keep training hard, and if you're an aspiring up-and-coming fighter, find a good gym. Find a good gym with good people. You are the sum of the people that you hang around with and spend the most time with. So find a good gym with good training partners and good coaches, and just enjoy the journey, enjoy the ride, because that's what it is. It is a martial arts journey. And all my fans and supporters, thank you so much for supporting me throughout my career, and promise that the best is yet to come.
Woo!
Right. There you have it. Mark,
Oh my gosh.
thank you.
Thank
you for joining
We
us.
wish
For those
you
that are
well.
watching, yeah. Go ahead, Karla.
No, I just want to say we wish you well, and keep on getting better, healing up nicely, so that you can represent the Philippines, and we can cheer for you as you win for us in the UFC.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
I'm
you so
claiming
much.
it. I'm claiming it.
Thank you.
We're gonna get a
Thank you.
Filipino
Strap
UFC
season.
and they
Sir,
call
yes,
champions.
sir.
You see, I can't watch professional fighting because I always end up crying because I'm like, no, they shouldn't hurt each other. Hug it out.
But ladies and
It can
gentlemen,
be settled with words.
well, once again, ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Mark Striegl. Thank you very
Thank you,
much,
guys.
man.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
Mark.
Thank you.
Take
We
care.
learned
Stay
so
safe.
much.
God bless.
All right, take care.
God
Bye-bye.
bless.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness, Karla.
Oh,
Great
how is
learning.
he like a tough fighter killer man? He's such a nice little bean.
It's the setbacks that keep you going. For him,
Yeah.
it's just chasing that dream, and we are excited to actually learn so much as he goes through the journey and actually watch his journey as he gets that UFC crown. You know what I mean? So that's actually
I'm so
cool.
excited for him, Rico, and I'm so excited for when this pandemic is over, and then you'll be like, "Yo, Mark, let's meet up," and he'll be like, "Sure, bro." Then you're gonna be like, "Yo, Mark, let's wrestle," and then he'll be like, "Are you sure?" You're gonna be like, "Yeah," because recommends I've been doing abs and stuff, and then in like 2 seconds he goes,
Sleep.
"Ah!" and then you're just like, and I'm gonna be
Right.
there like, best.
Carla's gonna put it on her You're gonna put it on your TikTok account.
I don't even
You're
have
gonna-
TikTok, but yeah, I totally will. Monsters, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget you can like it and share it with all of your friends and family, especially to all you MMA fans out there.
Yeah.
This is Pinoy pride right here. Here is a man who literally moved to the mountains to represent the Philippines in international fights. All right. So once again, for Facebook Live, for YouTube, and for Twitch, he's Rico Robles Live.
And live in the studio, she is Karla Aguas. Thank you guys for watching.
And back to the
Exclusive interview only on Manila's hottest